joined by Sir Iain Duncan Smith, of course, former leader of the party and MP for Chingford and Woodford Green. Iain, what is your party's policy on China?
Well, first of all, I should state that I am sanctioned by the Chinese government.
I know your position.
And I've been hacked regularly, and as my organisation, the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. So my view on this is very clearly that I think there is a bit of confliction inside the government. I think the Foreign Office is very opposed to taking on China because of business and all the other reasons they give. I think in places like defence, they are wanting to name names and to start squaring up to China on this. So the reality is that our problem starts with the integrated review, which when Rishi Sunak was trying to be Prime Minister, he said they were a systemic threat.
Yep.
Agree. When we got the integrated review refreshed, it turned out that they were, in fact, an epoch-defining challenge. And the brilliant thing about it was we were going to meet that challenge with robust pragmatism. Now, that sounds like someone of a scriptwriter of Yes, Prime Minister had got into the policy.
It really does.
So I've argued endlessly, you have to claim that they are a threat. They are a threat. They know they're a threat. Everybody else knows they're a threat. The Americans know they're a threat.
Of course.
And for some reason,
our
we think
viewers
that
know they're a threat.
I know. Not
the country knows they're a threat.
So I mean, they're responsible for COVID. So, you don't get a much bigger threat than that.
Why? And I get back to this question that I'm going to get, I think, some very interesting answers from the viewers and listeners on. Why can't they be straight with us? Why, over this issue, you know, John Healey, very impressive performance, very, very clear about what the problem was, about the lack of preparedness. Why can't they be straight with us?
Well, clearly overnight, somebody from the MOD briefed that they knew that it was more likely than not that it was China. They were the malign actor. And then in the morning, the government got worried that that would be done on the basis they don't have the full facts. So the truth is, it's almost certainly China. After all, China, I think the FBI described China as having the biggest cyber warfare unit in the world, dwarfing everybody else's, including their own. They are malign. They have a purpose in life, which is to destroy democracy, human rights, and freedom. They are against democracy completely, and they've made it clear from the beginning their purpose in life is to destroy those elements and return the world to autocracy. That is their plan, and we need to take it on. And, you know, I just made the point also that it was nearly 2 years ago, that the American services told us secretly that China had hacked the Electoral Commission and was hacking a large number of MPs. It took us a year and a half to finally come back to the dispatch box and accept that it was China that did it. And I think the reason why they don't want to do this, because what follows next must be sanctions. And sanctions mean you are in a standoff with China, and that has to be the case. America's already in that position. We should be in the same.
Well, you're clear, but your party leaders, our national leaders, are not. Let's have a look at the technical side of this. I'm joined by Professor Kevin Curran, Professor of Cybersecurity at Ulster University and Group Leader for the Cybersecurity and Web Technologies Research Group. Kevin, the company involved, SSCL, was named by John Healey in the House of Commons. It seems everything with the MOD, from recruitment to dealing with issues like this, is outsourced. Does that actually make sense? Or would it just be that the MOD would not have the technical skills to look after this data themselves?
It comes down to cost, usually in the end. Of course, organizations outsource, especially something like payroll, because regulations change all the time, tax codes, everything else, and software can, of course, make that easy. The question here is whether the military should outsource again to make something, what we would say maybe cost savings. And of course, the MOD has been on a cost-saving exercise for many years now and removing a lot of the real estate, but also infrastructure as well. So the main question is, can the military, the MOD, follow what is kind of generally taken as, you know, the rules in ordinary leading industries as well? But of course, I mean, they used to have, of course, all of this in-house as well, but so many systems now are being outsourced again. And of course, there is so many ways that into systems again. So there's always a worry about the supply chain, the software supply chain again, being one of the weakest links whenever it comes to hackers infiltrating infrastructure.
The big question, Professor Curran, are there things we can do to stop the Chinese being successful with hacking? Or is it one of those games where technology just keeps moving on and it's difficult to keep ahead of the bad guys?
It's always a cat and mouse game, but of course it comes down to resources. But of course the MOD is funded by the taxpayer. So how much, of course, do we associate, how much do we allocate to something, again, to protect on something? Of course, everyone believes they're secure, but of course it takes months for us to discover if someone is inside the system. And of course we have, as Iain has said again, that the Chinese state-sponsored group, the APT-31, as we said, we have 100,000 plus hackers here who get up in the morning and until they go to bed again, that their mission is to infiltrate the Western systems again and any governments again that they deem worthy of again. So they have allocated huge resources again to doing this again, but they only have to get lucky once as well. The modern systems are incredibly complex again, but we do have auditors, we do have best practice guidelines, of course, and we have to come along later and see, did the third party company again, the SSCL, did they adhere to best practice again? Or so we have ways of being able to do that, of course. But again, it comes down to resources. It comes down to how much money can we allocate again. Is it cost effective for us to outsource our military payroll and other systems as well to third parties which are headquartered in different countries?
I worry about this outsourcing. Let's wait and see. There will be an inquiry. Let's hope, Professor Curran, we get some answers, and thank you for joining us. Iain, again and again, I've talked about Capita on this programme. Outsourcing of recruitment for the Army, Navy, Air Force, complete disaster. People waiting up to 6 months and giving up the ghost and not bothering. Outsourcing does worry me greatly. Let's finish this and move on to Ukraine. The Chinese embassy have said the so-called cyber attacks by China against the UK are completely fabricated and malicious slanders. We strongly oppose such accusations. China has always firmly fought all forms of cyber attacks according to the law. So there you are, Iain Duncan
what can
Smith.
I say? I'm bowled over.
Absolutely.
I'm bowled over.
Quick thought. Important.
Yep.
You're wearing the Ukraine flag. You've been very clear from the start that we should support Ukraine and allow Ukraine to defend herself.
Yep.
Lord Cameron went a step further than that yesterday. He said, we've emptied the coffers and we've given all this kit to Ukraine, some of which is arriving today. And if they want to use British-made kit to fire missiles into Russia, that's all fine. So it seems to me we've weakened our own position in terms of our own material needs in case of a crisis. And we have provoked, the expected reaction from Russia. Doesn't seem a very wise thing to have said.
Well, I don't know whether that is policy or whether it was his view, but I have to tell you...
He's the Foreign Secretary, for goodness sake.
So we have to assume it's policy. But my main point is I'm not quite in the same place here with this, as with you on this. My view is that Ukraine has faced the most diabolical attacks from Russia into their territory, into their cities. I mean, the devastation in some of this, I've been out there a number of times, is absolutely horrendous. The lives lost, civilians, you would call, should not be targets, but they've been killed. Russia fights with no holds barred. Ukraine fights with both hands tied behind its back because it's surrounded by Russia, but it can't actually attack Russia. And so they've been already doing some of the attacks now, more with the drones. But the reality is Russia can't just play the war as it wishes. And for Ukraine, I understand why. There are some strategic targets, like power stations, etc., that Russia has been attacking in Ukraine, which I think become legitimate targets for Ukrainians to target them. They don't target and they won't target civilian targets. There's no question about that. But I think I've talked to enough Ukrainians when I was out there, and they're fighting for their lives out there right now.
They are.
And we need to help them in every way we can. So I think this is important.
Well, it's important in every way, whichever side you come at it from. I'm not terribly keen for us to get directly involved in conflict with Russia. I worry it might do that. Iain Duncan Smith, as ever, a delight to have you on the programme.